All right, Landon, Hampton. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, my friend. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Give a just a quick intro into Landon and what you're doing.
Yeah, man. Landon Hampton. My wife and I, along with our little boy, live here in the south side of Bowling Green, Kentucky. I was born and raised in the western coal fields up in Butler County. Went up and attended WKU. Got a degree in meteorology, and now I own and operate a weather company that I have, and I'm also involved with a few entities on the real estate side. So that's pretty much the makeup of Landon and pretty much in gist of what I do with my day to day.
So I don't know if you know this, but we have a lot of things in common. Our love for Kentucky being one, you knew that. But we are both scientists. Did you know that?
Both scientists, I like that. If
I've
you want
got
to define them
I've
as
got
that,
right here, Western Kentucky University Master of Science. So,
there you go, man.
we're essentially the same.
That's it, man. I'm going to bring you on, do some explainers for us.
Hey, pretty much a meteorologist at this point, so you know. How did you get going? Everybody, especially in the Bowling Green and surrounding areas, everybody knows whether or not. How did you get into that, man?
Man, I graduated from college. I went up to what I thought was a dream job. I was working with a logistics company as a flight operations meteorologist. I'm a social butterfly, so being stuck behind computer screens for 10 hours a day wasn't necessarily a great fit. So I guess you could say I took an act of faith with intentionality. We can all talk about the things that we want, but without action, you don't get those blessings that lay ahead. So I put in my notice, I moved into my parents' basement, and I launched a weather blog, which probably would not have sounded like the smartest idea at the time. But, with a little bit of time and a little bit of luck, it was able to blossom into what it is today, which is a much larger entity than what it was then, that's for sure.
Right, right. And I've got to ask you this: what question do you get asked more? What is wobbles, or how much snow are we going to get?
Man, that's probably a good tiebreaker, but yeah, I would lean towards here more recently. It's more how much snow we're going to get because the majority of people in the region have kind of adopted our language there and they kind of include it with what they do. There's even a few businesses that do it now, funny enough. So, we have that as our trademark. That definitely dominated the question front for the better part of 4 or 5 years there. But we're getting a little bit more onto the snow side of things, especially with us getting closer to winter.
Right, right. So for the people in my area of Western Kentucky that might not be familiar with whether or not, just go ahead and what is wobbles?
It's the 7 county coverage area that we do our weather coverage for. It's the acronym of the first letter of our 7 county coverage area, which is Warren, Allen, Barron, Butler, Logan, Edmondson, and Simpson County. So yeah, there's a few creative names. If I'll just put it out there, if you all want to write down those letters and kind of mix them around, this is the only one that would probably be safe to use with a weather company.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you recently, well, I guess not recently. It's just been a while since I talked to you, but you and Andrea have a beautiful boy.
Yes, sir. Yeah, rolling up. He's about 5.5 months now. Be rolling up on the 6 month mark here in a couple weeks. Yeah, our little Luca has been around and has been, by far and away the greatest blessing we've had so far. I know you're aware. I know you're experienced, but my friend, I never dreamed how much my perspective of time would change.
Mhm.
And that's occurred. It's kind of mandated and forced on you, but it's a very, very good thing to be reminded of. And I definitely needed that at this point in time in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, just going from there, just how has kind of your faith developed from going from starting your business, being married, having a child. Just give me a little insight on that.
The amount of warmth that I feel whenever I talk about my faith openly can be a testament enough in of itself. But through faith, Adam, whenever we take actions, there's a book that I've been mentioning to you here recently by Mark Batterson that's called Chase the Lion. And I believe it was released in 2016. I've read it every year since it's been released. A mentor of mine, Jim Green, gifted that to me. And there's a very important chapter in that book that discusses the difference between faith and thinking you have faith. And he discusses the difference between taking action and inaction. Because, it's not a lot of times people think, but inaction is an action in and of itself. And if you don't choose to act and have the faith to take risk, you rob God of the opportunity to do the supernatural.
Right.
And I feel that whenever you take faith and you take that first step, just like what Mark Batterson mentions in the book, he's not here to show you the first step. He's here to show you the second, third, and fourth step if you exhibit the faith to take the first step. And there's so many different aspects, Adam, and experiences since I took that quote unquote leap of faith, no pun intended, back in the year of 2012. That some of the experiences and some of the things that happen are simply indescribable, other than it having to do with God's divine intervention.
Right, right. Speaking of just divine intervention, do you care? Can I share the text we had that we shared this morning?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, it's a perfect example.
So we stay in touch every once in a while, but we don't talk every day. And just full disclosure, we've listed, our lake house property with you, and you were just kind of checking in and letting us know how things are going. And I asked how your family was doing, and you likewise. And I made the comment that I said we're just kind of looking for God's will for us, waiting for him to point us in the right direction for what he wants. And you said what? What were you studying on?
It's so crazy, man. It's been about, I guess, over the past 2 months. It's not, we're not just necessarily seeking answers, but like what you said, seeking some clarity on some decision making. And I think I had mentioned the verse from Ephesians to you all, and I put, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes and or temptations. And I just find that as a testament of, as we were sharing back and forth this morning, there's been a lot of, as an entrepreneur, it's called the shiny penny syndrome. Whenever you get a lot of opportunities that come your way that look really, really, really good on the surface, but if you're not careful and if you don't do your homework and you dive a little bit deeper, you can get burned very, very bad. And leaning on that verse a lot of being with some sort of comfort of telling those opportunities no. That's just really the verse that I've been leaning on here recently, and I shared that with you and Jess. And then, lo and behold, we get the product of Jess responding immediately and being like, "That is awesome," and you cannot be serious. And you all sent back pictures of the bracelets that you all wear. That is literally that verse
Right.
that I've been leaning on so heavily here recently. So again, if anyone out there needs a first world bare bones in your face example of God's divine intervention, that's a great example of one of those tokens that he threw both of our ways along the way. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, you sent that verse had been, weighing on your heart. And yeah, Jesse immediately sent back the picture of these, wristbands that we've got that is that verse, the full armor of God. Is crazy. And it's also crazy. Our church has been doing a deep dive into Ephesians for the last several months. So it's certainly God's way of saying, like, hey, y'all get together and chat about it. And it's just his will, man.
It is, man, without question. question. It's a reaffirming little token there along the way that I think everybody can search for and can utilize if they look in the right places. And I've got the tremendous blessing of being connected with you all. And it's what you mentioned a little bit before, Adam. The people in my circle, we're not going to talk every day because we know that we're both out there trying to serve others with servant heart and leadership, and we're both along our journeys. But anytime we do talk, man, it's like we never left off.
Right, right. Well, I want to talk about something because it's ironic being from Bowling Green and then moving out to Princeton. Talk about 2021 December? All of both of our communities were affected by severe weather, tornado that, came through Mayfield, Princeton, just kept going through our area. And then, eventually other storms, hit Bowling Green, and just talk about what was that night like for you?
Adam, I've been blessed to be out on the plains, chase tornadoes. I've bagged around 20 to 25 twisters. I absolutely love it. Haven't gotten to get out there near as much here recently. But, you always know that nothing prepares you for whenever it hits home. And I've had the unfortunate circumstance too of visualizing some of nature's beast impacting populated areas and communities. And you try to lend a helping hand, and even having that experience from the past, especially in your home coverage area, you're never prepared for it. And when you're sitting there looking at our tools and radar and whatnot, and you have a very detailed view of what we've been, trained to look for, of knowing that a large violent tornado is on the ground coming directly for your city. Obviously there's some fear that invokes, but man, after it passes through, you sit there, and it's like we had put out an update, afterward, and we're like, people understand that a tornado was hit and there's been damage. And of course, we were, and our team, we were out in the field immediately helping the National Weather Service survey and do those things. But, we had put out a little thing online after it occurred. It was, obviously keeping all those in, in our thoughts, and with, innate prayer for those suffering the losses. And God knows we lost many precious souls that night, but it's also having the awareness of what you're about to see whenever the sun comes up over the horizon, and it quite literally paints an entirely different picture.
Mhm.
And you saw the shock immediately the following morning, with the first responders and everyone who we're trying to affiliate with, bringing in even an updated forecast for recovery efforts. And man, it was absolutely devastating. I would be inept to say, it took me about a week. We were storm surveying there for about 7 or 8 days after, but man, it finally caught up to me, and I had to have, a day or so to just completely decompress and let all my emotions out. And, God blessed me with a phenomenal partner in life, Andrea, to help get me through that, along with, my parents, sibling, and everyone around, and great friends like you all as well, who can understand how it's so mentally weighing, Adam, just being someone who quote unquote covers the weather. Regardless of how good your coverage is, you have to come to the understanding that weather isn't everyone's priority, and that's okay. But that doesn't take away the guilt that you can feel whenever you learn that precious lives were lost. And you kind of feel like, I don't want to just use the terms people say not to use it, but it's like quote unquote, it was on my watch or something like that. It's just having the awareness and the
Mhm.
attention, not just throughout the process of the event, but dealing with the PTSD that now a local community still has. Anytime a rumble of thunder occurs, it's a triggering mechanism.
Right.
And our feeds across our social platforms and blog immediately light up. And it's up to us now to continue with our servant's heart, to continue to provide the updates that that we were put here to do. And I'm a firm believer that that's my purpose and that's my why.
Right, right. How I hear people say, well, it's just a watch or it's just a warning, that it never happens, it never happens, it never happens until the time it does and you're unprepared. Like, how do you educate people on that? Because I know that, sometimes we'll go to the basement and nothing happens, but that's not really the point. It's the point is that it could occur at any moment.
Yeah, Adam, it's difficult to walk the language line, if you will, with what we utilize. And the easiest way to describe, like a tornadic event is where a tornado is going to hit is a very, very high probability of a devastating outcome. Very low probability that you're going to be impacted as an individual. Tornadoes are not the size of hurricanes. You're not covering thousands of kilometers and miles that you're just wiping out, with these wind walls, just bringing insane amounts of storm surge, this, that, and the other. Tornadoes can be very confined. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some, the largest, I believe, widest recorded tornado was the El Reno tornado out in Oklahoma. I was actually out on that one that day. It reached a maximum width of 2.6 miles wide. But you take that into comparison in 2021 when we had more of a, not nearly as broad and wide tornado, but almost like a drill bit tornado that came through Bowling Green. The vast majority of the population, physically wasn't impacted. But you have to understand that if you are in that high priority or that high likelihood of the devastating impacts occurring, it's probably in your best interest, along with your family, to take action and get to your safe place. So, that's something that we try to walk a fine line on is you don't want to become the quote unquote boy who cried wolf, because people don't, pay attention to that. Again, that's whenever it goes further and further down on their priority list. But we just try to make it a point to understand that it's a low probability that you're going to be impacted, but this is going to be a very, very high impact event for those that it does incur upon. And, usually more often than that, we can, alter our viewers and our readers' behavior a little bit more, not in a bad way, in a good way, in order to get them to take action and move and get to their safe place.
Yeah, yeah, that certainly. And I think you're what I love about your content, about what you put out, is that you go off of what you're seeing. You're not trying to boast for ratings, you're not trying to boast for ads. You are going off what you're seeing. And sometimes, a lot of times, you say, hey, we're not going to know about this until 48 hours out, or whether it's severe weather or whether it's winter weather, one people get anxious about, one people get excited about, but you're always like, hey, no, let's just wait and see what the data puts out.
That's it, man. And I understand, we refer to it in the digital world as engagement farming. A lot of people put out a lot of crazy things, snowfall maps, winter's right around the corner. Everyone out there is going to see, everything from, I love the runs of our long-term models showing 2 and 3 weeks out of 3 feet of snow on the ground. And then it gets here, and it's 48 and raining.
Right.
Um, we've never had that as our policy, Adam. We don't run whether or not, and whether or not was not created to make a profit. There's other business entities I'm involved of that takes care of me and my family. Whether or not is the community service arm of what my purpose and my why is, and that's why we're here. We're here to serve the public and we're here to serve the local community. And the best way that we can go about doing that is using the appropriate language, and honesty is always the best policy because again, we're not out there engagement farming, trying to get 1,000 likes and shares on a piece of thing just to, be able to walk into an advertiser's door and ask for, boatloads of sponsorship money. That's like with our current supporters, we don't refer to them as sponsors. They are our community partners because they are helping provide a community service for what they do, and they should take pride in that.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Well, we certainly appreciate what you do for the community. Even living out in Caldwell County, we're right outside of your coverage area, but always paying attention to the content you're putting out, and if there's ever going to be anything from tornadic activity to ice storms to whatever, we're paying attention to what you're saying. So we certainly appreciate you.
Well, thanks so much, man. We couldn't do what we did, without our phenomenal team with Evan, Nick, and Reagan too. Everyone's working behind the scenes. More often than not, I tend to be the face on the screen. But it takes the effort from the entire team, and they all have servants' hearts as well. So I'm blessed to be a part of it.
Awesome. How many times do you tell people to get their milk egg sandwiches, ready?
It depends on what the paycheck from Kroger looks like that week. We got to wait for that to come in. But yeah, man, milk sandwiches. It's the appetizer before any big snow event. High in nutrition too.
Yeah. Only second to stay out of Fairview Plaza, right?
Yeah, that's it. We don't want a tow truck to have to come pull you out.
Awesome. Well, switching from the weather scene to let's talk a little UK. Um, Tell me your background on coming up a UK fan.
Man, it's my grandparents, my father, everyone, my mom. We always grew up watching it. It's the great Kentucky pastime, Adam. I grew up in a small community, and it was always meeting up at the neighbor's house. I'll never forget, growing up in the little community there in Butler County, walking down the hill to Cecil and Kathy Goff's house, our next door neighbors, and watching the '96 championship game. We won't talk about the '97 one, but the 1998 one as well. And it's just something that you always remember. You bring back senses of smell. You can smell the char grill burgers that's being made, the potato salad. You got the Heath bar cake waiting for dessert, and it was just a phenomenal, just a thing that draws an attraction, a fellowship that's sometimes difficult to explain to some people. Is that now, yeah, it's a basketball game, but you have to understand this basketball team promotes and brings together a community that's very difficult to explain to other people.
Mhm.
It's like there's no proteins here. It's cliche to say, a lot of people say that, but you just think back, Adam, even to my great grandparents. You'd be sitting around Sunday dinner table after church, and what's the hot topic? Well, how's the Cats going to look on Tuesday night? Coming off a Saturday SEC game against Tennessee. Well, we got Arkansas Tuesday night. Back in those days, that was Nolan Richardson territory.
Right.
And it's just so many warm and great memories. And man, as I've gotten older, and some people, of course, don't agree. Don't get me wrong; I want them to win every game. But even the tough losses you have to take, you've kind of learned to be just more aware of your time with your loved ones spent, and you're just kind of grateful for the experience.
Right. Right. I can't remember. Were you with us at Dan Nevedek's house the night of the Wisconsin loss?
Is that where we were? I'm
I,
trying to remember if I was there or not, man.
I know we were all neighbors. I went to watch the game with some friends at Nevedek's house across the street, and just watching that game. And as it was going, I was like, I can't do this in front of everybody else. I actually walked back across the street to my house, watched the
I think
ending
I
by
recall
myself.
that.
And I
I
told
think I
Nevedek, I was
recall.
like, I will never watch another game at your house, dude. Like this, we watched the Notre Dame game, the game before in the Elite Eight at my house, and we won. We go to Nevedek's house and lose that the only loss of the season. And I was like, man, I love you, but we can't do it again.
It's just the bad juju, man. Get it out of here.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, things like that. And you're right. I think I actually recently talking with my pastor that sports and definitely Kentucky sports has a way to bring people together the way that politics divides. It's like it doesn't matter what affiliation or whatnot. When it comes to UK sports, everybody is on the same team and
Yep.
everybody loves each other, and like it's just a special thing to see that I don't think a lot of fan bases. There's some good fan bases, and a lot of fan bases boast about being the best one. But I think when it comes to, UK, that's why they're the best fan base because it doesn't matter race, it doesn't matter, your religious, affiliation. All together, we're the same team. We want the Cats to win.
It is, man. And there's a unity there that it brings along. And in today's world, Adam, there's just people develop this proclivity to kind of stray towards the negative and pessimism. And whenever you have something like this that can bring a bright spot, that's something that needs to be highlighted a little bit more, I believe. We can all disagree. It's easy to find things that you agree on. But sometimes it takes a little bit more effort to discover the things that you do agree on. And I think we would all do ourselves a little bit better favor if we took the time to search for common ground rather than searching for what it is that's going to keep us apart.
Yes, yes, you nailed it. And I know you're a KSR listener just like I am, and Matt Jones says all the time we have a lot more in common than we do differences, but we focus on the differences and start, bickering with each other over the differences, even though we have all this in common. So that, yeah, you just crushed it.
For sure.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you taking time to chat, and hopefully we'll do this again soon. Love talking, certainly weather. I'm a weather nerd. You know, with my dad early on moving down to Florida and just getting to see, some of those storms down there, I just fell in love with weather. And, I'm certainly not as knowledgeable as you are. That wasn't my education, but, there's nothing better than Jesse and I will just sit on the porch, watch a storm or, whatnot. And we absolutely love it. So if you want to chat weather or Kentucky or Faith, whatever. You shoot me a message and we'll chat about it.
All right, brother. That goes both ways, man. Extremely grateful to have you and Jess as good friends, man. I wish you all nothing but the best.
The same to you, but brother. Appreciate it. Have a
Take
good
care.
one.